So we are almost ready to assemble. We've got a couple of pieces here that I've done and just lightly misted in the black, and we're gonna rub those, wash those, if you will, with acetone, and I'll show you how that looks. And that's basically how I get this look, where it's a little worn, a little used. This is a technique that's a little different than the like rubbing it with steel wool. If you look at some of my other videos, I'm making one about different ways to distress, if you will. And there's a lot of different ways, but it's also going to depend on the paint that you use. But you can see here, this is titanium with the rubbed color in it, and it just adds a little extra depth and texture, pulls out the lines. That's part of the reason I like it so much. You can really see, like you can see here in the Python, it really pulled that out. It's going to add a little more character to our finished look. So in this case, really simple. This is just looks really black and dirty right now, but most of this is actually going to come off just enough to give us a little depth and texture in the look. So I got a little acetone on here. I'm just going to gently wipe off what I don't want. And the cool thing is if I overdo it, I can literally just put it back on. And see, I just want enough. Can I get this focus for you? Yeah, here we go. I just want enough to give it some accents. So when I put it on there, the cool thing is it's pretty much touchable almost immediately. Now we're going to do these. Be a little extra careful because these are plastic, but the paint should protect it. So fingers crossed everything goes well here. Now one of the things about doing plastic is that you have to really wait on the paint. There's no way to like bake it or prep it or anything like that. So this actually turns out okay for us, which is good. Go to the other side. You want to work quickly, and you want to keep your acetone wet. You don't want it soaking wet because you end up with runs, and that's a completely different kind of look. But you want it wet enough where you're not dragging the paint. You just want enough to give it that texture. So then we go and add this in, we get a more completed look. And there's our tumbler in there. And that's essentially what we're looking at. Okay, so we continue with some distressing ideas. Now before I showed you using some acetone, and the cool thing about doing it with the acetone is that you have a lot of time. So even if this sits for several minutes, of course it depends on your paint type and all that, but you have a pretty good bit of time to work. And ultimately all you're trying to do is just rub off the excess. And as I mentioned before, you want to be careful not to like scrub. And again, if your paint, whatever paint you're using isn't tolerant of acetone, you may need to find an alternative. The paint that I'm using, once it's cured, it holds up quite well, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. Now, when I'm doing mags, this is a hex mag. I lightly mist the whole mag, and there's a couple different ways to do it, but this particular series, I have, as you can see, I have a bunch. They're all going to get done. I use the steel wool. So again, it's all going to depend on what your application is and how you want to do it. There's also the green scrub pads and the brown scrub pads, which I may do some of those as well. These are actually for clients. So I'm putting like a firm pressure, but not, I don't want to like burn through the red. And again, this is a good 3 coats of red. And what I'm using in this particular one is Duracoat. And it's pretty solid stuff. It's hardcore, but I can burn through it if I spend too much time. But as you can see, you get a nice worn, kind of distressed look. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Some other ones would be if I wanted to intentionally burn through the red and maybe have a silver underneath it and give it kind of that metal look. But in this case, I just want it to be a little dirty. I want it to look worn and still show the highlights of the red, and it gives it kind of a cool look. And that's just the regular red and then the one with the wearing using steel wool. So we'll continue with this, and I'll continue to show some new ideas as I go. And if you're following along, I hope you're getting something out of this. And if you have questions, just throw some comments in the comment section and ask questions, and I'll see if I can answer any questions for you. Thanks so much. All right, so we went through some steel wool options for distressing. Now I want to look at, we're literally going to use a little acetone. Now this is not something I usually use on this size. You'll see like on smaller items like goat guns and things like that, I'll do this a little bit more. This gives a very different kind of feel, and it really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The thing about using acetone is if you go too hard on it, of course you can cause some other issues, but you have to keep it very wet. And I would normally use this in mixture with perhaps another kind of distressing. So this is just really to give you an idea of how the acetone works on a larger surface. It can give a kind of a cool look. This would also be kind of cool to go back over it, or incorporate this with another kind of distressing. Like, so for example, if I was doing a rifle, and I want to do like a receiver set and give it a really well-used, battle-worn look, this would be an option for that. You go through this pretty fast, so you have to cycle through that a lot because you'll end up with a mess. But again, kind of gives a very different look, and as that dries, it'll leave all the cracks and crevices really filled in. And then I'd probably even spray over this again once it's dried, or bake it for a few minutes and cure it up. Hit it again with maybe even another color and then rub that one in. I don't know, you can have some fun with that. And then just your good old-fashioned green Scotch-Brite. Now to make a brown Scotch-Brite that's really used for more of abrasiveness, this has been sitting for maybe 45 seconds, however long it's been taking me to do this video. So this is a lot more aggressive. I don't typically use this, but again, it has its place. You have to make sure that your surface is well cured, because if you don't, you will burn right through it. This one gives a little bit rougher texture. So if you want to, again, if you're doing like a battle-worn theme and you want to burn through the surface of the paint you're working on to get to the paint underneath it, this is a great option. So as you can see, I've actually made the paint a little heavier on this one than I did on the other ones, because it's best shown just burning through the edges of it is the way to go. So if I wanted to do, maybe get a metal look under there, I could do a stainless or a titanium, spray it with black, and then go back and wear down those high sides and really give it a just kind of more of a scratched up look. So then you can get really kind of that look there. If you go too hard, you will straight burn right through it. If you really want to, you can go back with your steel wool and you can get rid of a little extra. So the steel wool is softer, but it will eat away a lot of the more heavy stuff and give you a different kind of feel underneath that. So a lot of the projects that I do will have a combination of different kinds of distressing. It's not required that you wear gloves while you do this, but this stuff will burn whatever color paint you're working with right into your hand, so it just makes it easier for cleanup. But that's pretty much it. So you can see there's some very distinctly different looks there. This is my preferred look. Now again, if I'm doing a battle worn, you can see the scratchiness of this one, whereas the red one that I did is a little smoother and also go a little bit lighter. So if I sprayed over this one, I could get a little bit more of this fill in there as well, and maybe even like throw some browns or some reds if you're trying to get a little rusty look, or a little turquoise maybe with some white mixed in, something like that, if you want to get like that patina feel to it. So some different looks, different feels, completely different styles. I urge you to experiment with it. Now keep in mind, this is Duracoat. Duracoat, you can, these mags I painted about an hour ago, put them in the oven for 15 minutes at 180 degrees, and I'm ready to go. As you can see, it's pretty durable. If I'm using KG, I use this 180 degree low temp additive because you don't want to put these mags in at 320 degrees for an hour and 25 minutes because they will never come out the same. Now, if you're doing a metal mag, not a big deal. But the KG in all these different colors, they will need to be fully cured. And full cure for those is baking it at 180 degrees using this additive for an hour and 20 minutes. And then you can go back over it and do the same thing. And again, light spray, let it just barely dry up. You don't want it to be sticky. If you spray it too thick and it's tacky, the paint's gonna actually smear and it's gonna look like total crap. So I hope this helps. Try to make a fairly quick video just to help you get started on maybe doing some of your own distressing. That's it. As always, I really appreciate the likes and subscribing. If you want to know more, if you have any questions or anything you want to learn, just let me know. Thanks so much.